shidduchim. If we take a look at the secular world, if there is any such thing as shidduchim, or let's call it dating, it's quite different to what shidduchim means in the Torah world. They look at the material side of things. They would check out money, beauty, various other benefits, material benefits. Another thing about dating in the secular world is that they not necessarily are thinking of a shidduch at all. So of course dating, when talking of dating, there are some communities within Klal Yisrael that parents see nothing wrong with their teenage children dating without marriage in mind at all. Very often they've already decided that they will not get married and they're dating anyway. So first of all, according to the Torah, that is forbidden. Most people know that physical contact, which is enjoyable, is between males and females, is forbidden. It's also forbidden just to chat and enjoy each other's company. The Torah did not just say, thou shalt not commit adultery. The Torah said, don't even get close to each other. So anything that creates some kind of closeness in the way that males and females enjoy each other would be forbidden. So we're not talking about dating that's got nothing to do with shidduchim over here, because that's not something that makes a difference to us. We're talking about dating for shidduchim. So now even dating for shidduchim, unfortunately in many parts of the secular world, they will date for not shidduchim, and if things work out, then they might think of marriage later. They usually get fed up with each other after a year or two, and that's also not really what we're talking about. So what are we talking about when we talk about shidduchim? What is that beauty that in the Frum families, at least where I come from, I'm from Israel, so you have to excuse my lack of command of the English language. Where I come from, the parents on both sides will make very good inquiries. Usually the parents will meet each other before their children even meet, and have very often decided how many meetings their children will meet. And the children will then go ahead and meet for an hour and a half, or maybe 2 or 3 times, or maximum 5 times. And they've already organized where they're going to make the l'chaim and when the chasana will be. And it's so beautiful. And the whole wedding only costs about $5,000. It's afterwards fixing them up, buying them a house and an apartment, and that's the big expense. So it's very different to what the people who our audience, the way our audience thinks. So there the parents have done all the inquiries. The parents know their children well. The parents are experienced. The parents are not moved by the material bribes, and it's very, very different to how, and these children live wonderful, wonderful lives afterwards, and they live until 120. I know somebody who recently, his wife passed away, and he came to hospital for a minor procedure about a month later, and the nurses came over to him and said, we must give you our condolences, for you had a wonderful wife. You must have had a wonderful marriage with her. So he said, yes, true, but it was not long enough. So they asked him, how long was it? He said it was only 72 years. And they got married during the Second World War in London, and they were Germans, so they weren't allowed to be in London, so they were, because maybe they're German spies, so they were put in some out-of-the-way area, and there wasn't even a minyan by their chasana. They came to London during Sheva Brachas to a Frum restaurant, and someone had a bottle of wine, and they made a Sheva Brachas for them. Yes, 72 years, and it wasn't long enough. I would like to go mehoidu v'ad kush. I'd like to travel the whole world and see where there is another country, another nation, where people live in love and respect and care for each other so many years. And so there's something special about shidduchim. Okay, so young people may look for looks or money. Well, that's a little bit off course. When you're going into a shidduch, you are now sowing the seeds, planting, taking root, possibly, of your future generations. People want a career, what for? People want money, what for? You're talking here about building a house. You're talking here about not a 2-year contract with some worker or partner. You're talking here of a lifetime contract, and you're building together everything you'll have in this world and in the world to come. So it is very important to think, the person you're dating, whether they're for you or not. If, for instance, the girl is not so strong in keeping Shabbat, or she prefers the tasty food in a particular restaurant over it being kosher, or she'll keep vegetarian and fish and whatever, or dairy, but she doesn't really mind if there is a hechsher, if it is kosher or not. Are you on that level, or are you not on that level? If you're not on that level, so bear in mind, this is how she's going to raise your kids, and this is how your house is going to look afterwards. Or it could be vice versa. Maybe the boy is like that and the girl's stronger than him. So these things have to be taken into account. People will not be happy afterwards when they are in different directions. I once counseled a secular couple. Of course, I made a condition. They were already older, that they must keep tahara. Their children brought them to me. And their children said to me that they have separated, but they don't really have any reason to get divorced, just they've separated. And do you think you can, I was in a town somewhere else around the world, in a different continent, and I said, listen, I have half an hour to meet them between one lecture and the other, and fine, if they want, they can come. They came, they sat down. I asked the husband, why did you come to me? He said, to make my children happy. I said, do you think I can help you? He said, no. So why did you come? To make my children happy. Okay, so I said, what is your problem? He said, I don't have any problem. So I asked, do you mind if your wife explains? They were in love since they were 14. And they had a beautiful marriage, and he had just walked out. Okay. So she started explaining this, that, and the other, the usual kinds of things, the way people explain things. Okay, I turned to him, I said, what do you say? Do you think that's correct? So he said, oh, I don't have anything to say. Do you think I can help you? No. So why'd you come? To make my children happy. Okay. So I asked him, what did the psychologists say, the people you've been to till now? So he said, oh, they just take in loads of information. They have no solutions anyway. So I asked him, do you mind if your wife summarizes what they have said? So he said, oh, yeah, if she wants. So she went and summarized what the psychologist said. So I turned to him and I said to him, what have you got to say about that? So he said, well, there's nothing. He said, married life is so boring, and divorced life is so boring. So what's the difference? So I said to him, if that's the case, maybe I said to him, well, that's exactly what I said. You have nothing really to be married for, but you have nothing really to get divorced for. So he said, yes, I suppose that's right. So I said to them, can I tell you what the Torah has to say about marriage? So, okay. So I said to them, in the Torah says that a man a man will leave his parents and he will be attached to his wife, and they will become one unified flesh. I told them, let me tell you a story. I once got a call. It was on Friday afternoon. He was a man, I know him and his wife, very upright, respectable people, parents to about 7 children, married for about 12 years. And he told me that he's escaped from the house. He's just terrified to go back. So I said to him, what happened? He said about 6 weeks earlier, his wife had miscarried. And we all know that there's major hormone changes and whatnot after such a thing. He said the first 3 weeks were Gan Eden. They were full of emunah, and they were so happy with each other and so strong. The following 3 weeks have been Gehenna. She's made his life a misery. Whatever he says, he's wrong for saying. When he's quiet, he's wrong for staying quiet. Whatever he does, he's wrong. Whatever he doesn't do, he's wrong. And he said he can't take it anymore. He said he bought her a bouquet of flowers, an expensive bouquet, and he's not a rich boy. And she took the bouquet in front of his face and ducked it head first straight into the garbage pail. He said he wrote her a beautiful letter, an apology letter, for that he hadn't done anything. And he said she took this letter, and he's very artistic. He sells his paintings for thousands of dollars. He didn't even open the envelope. There could be $1,000 in there. She couldn't care. She ripped it to pieces and threw the pieces into his face. And even more painful than that, in 2-3 days' time, she is supposed to be coming home from the mikveh. And that's always a very, very special time. And she is screaming at him that all you want is to use me. And that's all you need me for. And he's torn to pieces. And he called me up and he said, what should I do? I'm scared to go home. So I said to him, it is a pasuk in the Torah. So he said to me, where is that pasuk? It's not where the curses are in Bechukoisai or Kisovai. Like, where is this pasuk? I said, it's right at the beginning of the Torah. The Torah says, Ve'el ishech teshukatech. A woman, her tshuka is for her husband. HaKadosh Baruch Hu originally wanted to build Adam and Eve as two separate individuals, but then he built one individual with a two-faced individual, a male and a female, half-half. He then split that and built Chava and brought her to Adam. And of course, he beautified her with 24 different decorations, and he brought her to Adam. And Adam woke up from his sleep, hugged her and kissed her, and said, Brucha at Lashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created animals as two separate individuals. They hit each other, they snatch things from each other, they cohabit, and they walk off with no responsibilities towards each other whatsoever. She doesn't accept his authority or serve him in any way. And he also couldn't really care for her. On that, the Torah says, it is not good for a human being to be lonesome. I will make him a helpmate, and she will want to be with him all the time. He'll want to be with her all the time. Physically, you can't be together all the time. You'll get on each other's nerves. We've all heard those stories of the person who moved the business to the house and got divorced shortly afterwards. Okay, so you can't be physically, we're talking about emotionally. This is a deep, tight, strong emotional bond between a husband and wife. And this is what marriage is in Judaism. And when a woman gets a chukka for her husband, she may need him because she needs everything from him. She may just need a hug and a kiss. And she may just need a chat, some compliments. And she may just need to pour out her pain because she is considered as one of his limbs, and the limbs can't function unless if they are attached to the body. And she will be floating around until she can attach herself to him. If she's gone through a very happy experience or a very miserable experience, she must share that with somebody. I told this person, can you imagine a millionaire who has 7 million? And then he was in the middle of a deal for his 8th million, and he lost it. Someone swiped it out from under his nose. He's going to be shattered. Well, your dear wife was in the middle of her, in the middle of having her 8th, and she lost it. She's very, very broken. Understand, when a woman goes off the handle and she screams and shouts and accuses, and she knows exactly where the man's open nerves are, where his weak points are, she is just desperate for him to share with her pain, sympathy, empathy. And his job is to do that. That is what he's there for. And this person, a woman does not need, she doesn't need justifications, and she doesn't need remorse and repent for what you didn't do. And I'll never do it again when you didn't do it anyway. That's not what she needs. She just needs your heart. Feel for me. She does not need advice and solutions. I'm not saying, women, that you're right. You have to have some respect for your husbands, but it does happen. And you can tell him that, I don't really mean you, and I don't really mean this, because he gets very nervous when you attack him. Okay, but really what all she needs is heart, and more heart. She doesn't really mean it. She just needs someone to feel with her. I told him, go back home and sit down by the kitchen table when she's in the middle of her Erev Shabbos preparations and burst into tears. And she is going to ask you, what happened? And tell her, you know what happened a few weeks ago? It was so hard for me. And I realized that it's going to be hard for you. And I had to play Shimshon HaGibor, Samson the Mighty. And I had to pretend, otherwise the house is going to fall apart. And I put on that show for 6 weeks. And I stand back in awe at your mighty soul, what you've been through and how you're taking it, and how did you stay normal? And just cry. I've heard a few times from women, the day he'll cry to me, I'll know he's mine. Not cry about his own troubles, he'll cry with me about my troubles. That's all she needs. But most people don't call you back. But he called back within an hour, I think within half an hour, and he told me that his whole house had U-turned. The Pasuk says that a person is supposed to love his wife like a deathly love. He is supposed to be obsessed by the love he has for his wife. Now, this doesn't mean I love fish. Do you not see? I eat it with such an appetite. No, you don't love fish. You love yourself and you kill fish and eat them. You know, once somebody fell into the Niagara Falls. So that's like definite death, right? Almost definite. So there's a fella standing there. He immediately took off all his clothes and jumped straight in after him. And he rescued him. And it was all over the media of the whole United States, this hero who had risked his life to rescue somebody else. And somebody stepped over to him and asked him, why did you rescue that person? So he said, because he owes me $1 million. So think about it. So much of our love is self-love. No, that's not what love is. Love is real concern for the other person. Love is real appreciation and respect. If someone loves his wife, this deathly love, and he is obsessed by his love for his wife, when she has a tantrum, just to let go of some feelings and have someone sympathize and empathize, he doesn't lose his cool. He doesn't raise his voice and defend himself and then counterattack. How can he? If you love someone, you have mercy on them. You pity them. And if you love someone, if you pity someone, she's in enough pain as it is. She doesn't need extra from you. This is marriage. This is to become united with your wife. This is to become her flesh, a closer blood relative to your wife than you are to your parents, as the Torah says. I told this couple, you know, Mrs., when your husband came home from a hard day's work at the office and he was under pressure and he did not want to share those pressures with you because enough of them in the office and he wanted to just relax, but he was under pressure. So, of course, a good husband puts on a good show for the first 10 minutes and then he turns to his wife and he says, you know, if I snap tonight, it's nothing to do with you. I've just had a hard day in the office, and it's not for our good for me to explain you exactly what happened because it won't make it easier for me, or it may be Lashon Hara, or for some other reason I don't want to speak to you about it. Yeah, she'll be there. I turned to this woman, I said to her, were you there for him in these moods? Did you try to sensitize, develop a sensitivity for when he needs your emotional support? Were you there for him? Why not? You know, your psychologist said, okay, so give your partner quality time, 40 minutes every evening. Did you give him a heart? You know, I met people that their wife wants to build a big house by the sea and a big house in Israel. How often do you go to Israel? Well, we don't. Maybe our daughter will go to seminary there in 3 years' time. So what do you want to do? You're doing this for an investment? Would you rent it out? No, we wouldn't rent it out. So why is she talking, you know, and I just step into the person's house and I see plans, he's living in a palace, and I see plans on the floor. And I understand these plans because I also sit in Based In, and there's a lot of fights about building. And I say, wow, like, you're building something? And he says, yes, like, we've grown out of this house. He's got a swimming pool and a tennis court, I'm not exaggerating, and an inbuilt trampoline and who knows what else, and he's moving. This is not big enough. So yeah, money can't buy happiness. Money is one of our problems in life. Too little of it's a bit of a problem. Too much of it is even a bigger problem. Okay, so and his wife wants the house by the sea. And when do you go to the sea? We go for about 2 weeks a year. And you need a house. Maybe you should rent a palace. Yeah, that's what we've been doing till now. Just she wants to build one. So I told this person she doesn't need a house. I told him I know somebody who he opened a supermarket in the olden days when it wasn't plastic money and all numbers and computer screens. He opened a new supermarket. He came home with an attache case with £25,000 in it. It was like big takings from the first day. And he was really excited. And he dashed in. And his wife came to him and he said, look how much we made today. And he sat down on the couch and he opened up the case and he started counting. And he had big complaints on his wife. Why didn't she come and count with me and enjoy my happiness with me? I want to explain you something. A man has a curse that with the sweat of his face he will eat his bread. We have what's called a lust for money. Sometimes that lust is so strong that our wife feels that we love our money more than we love her. So what she'll be doing is asking for a house by the sea and asking for hitting the credit limit on the credit card all the time and asking for a house in Israel when she doesn't need it. And we're not talking about a little apartment, these kind of people. She doesn't need anything. She needs a husband, and she's not getting him because he is busy counting his money. That person, if he had any sense, he should have walked in, paid attention, spent a few, thrown the case on the couch and spent a few precious minutes with his wife, and then all of a sudden said to his wife, wow, I forgot, do you know what's in that case? Today's takings. Do you want to see? Let's go check. Oh, so you love me and this is like a side thing, the money, or you love your money and I'm like a side thing? This is marriage. Yeah, I've heard people say, I don't want to do the dishes on the floors because then she will be spoiled and she'll start taking advantage of me. 1 minute, you walk on these floors? You ate from these dishes? Why should she, she's doing your dishes and you don't want to do your dishes? I had somebody that his wife hated changing the bottom sheet, schlepping that heavy mattress. So I told him whose sheets, yours, hers? Oh, and the washing, she hangs all the washing and she arranges she packs and shelves it and cleans it. Maybe you could just do just one thing. Just put down the bottom sheets because it's heavy for her. The mattresses, that's one thing that's difficult for her. Oh, somebody came to Rabbi Kanievsky and he said his wife bothers him in the morning that she has to help him prepare the children and pack them all off and give each one a sandwich and wait for this and go to there. And he said, this is Bittul Torah. So Rabbi Kanievsky wanted to stand up for him. So he said, why? He said, because you're growing orphans up in your home, so you deserve respect. Let me stand up for you. So he said, no, these are my children. He said, what? These are your children? This is your responsibility. She helps you with the children and you have to do some of it yourself. What are you complaining about? So, yeah, this is marriage. So the baby cries in the middle of the night, so I'll pretend I'm sleeping. Why? You know how to make a bottle. So she's fed the baby. Maybe you could burp the baby. This is marriage. Do you really love her? You're supposed to get to animals. They were two creations, so they fight. They cohabit and walk off without any responsibilities. Humans were originally one creation. They are going back to reunify. The Gemara relates to Ishtoi Kegufoi. Sometimes a wife's body has the same halacha as the husband's body. There are a few halachot in this. You're considered one person with a left hand and a right hand. So this is what marriage is. Absolute unity. Absolute unity. I had a couple that it was really very Haredi people, and they had made up before they got married, no smartphones in the house. And they, shortly after they got married, she turns up with a smartphone, of course, with all the relevant filters. And he comes to me and he calls me up from a different town in Israel, and he tells me, what should I do? Terrible. She's walked in with this, broken the rules that we made up. So I asked him, does she know you're upset about that? He said to me, yes. So I said to him, don't do anything. Wait 3-4 weeks. And if it's still a problem, take her to a non-religious restaurant. And you will see how couples walk in together, all excited with each other. They take the menu, they make their order, the waiter comes, they make their order, and then each one takes their smartphone out, and they're just hammering away at their smartphone, like not even thinking about what they're eating and having absolutely no connection with each other. I said to him, I was saying this in the hope that, 1 in 10 will look like that, because although I am quite in the Haredi incubator, I have been to hospitals and on buses, and I do see that the whole day they're busy. I just flew in over here, and it was so nice that I didn't have to speak to the people around me because they were so busy with their phones. It's like usually you don't have to just sit imprisoned in that pub for these 12 hours. Flying across the ocean, you have to actually speak to people. Well, this time I didn't have to because they're so busy. So I told him, take her to the restaurant and then ask her, when we made up with, don't tell her the rabbis don't let or any of that. So when we made up not to have smartphones in the house, I wanted to have a relationship with you. And look how people have ruined their relationships. Do you know, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, his wife made him a drink and brought it in, and he was in front of his disciples, and he asked his disciples, what is in this cup? And they were like academics, and they were very analytically and each one had his idea about what's in the cup, and he disqualified all their answers. So they said to him, Rebbe, what is in this cup? He said, it's a cup full of love, because my wife has prepared it for me with her whole heart. The Gemara says that Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, I want to give a special present to the Jews from my treasure house, and its name is Shabbat, Shabbos. I want to give them Shabbos. Go tell them that a very precious present is on the way. Yeah. Years ago, when I grew up, if you wanted to talk on the phone with somebody, you were stuck to the wall. There was a wire. Okay. Not everybody had phones right in the beginning, but then people got phones, but you were stuck to the wall. So then if a couple went out to a restaurant, they really had quality time together. And then these phones came detached from the wall, cell phones. So it was a little bit harder, and it was ridiculous. A couple puts away the time. They want to go out together and enjoy each other, and then the cell phone rings during the meal. And isn't that ridiculous? Is that wrong number really more important than your wife? Let me tell you what she's going to do to you. If you didn't give her 100% attention when she deserved it, when she dolled herself up and came to be close with you, and you only gave her 95% attention, she doesn't realize the attention you gave her. She only realizes the 5% that she did not get. Oh, so do you know what's going to happen? She's going to blow a tantrum on you, and then you won't dare look who's on the phone or answer a phone call in the middle of that. So she's going to get 100% attention some way else. Was that worth it? Okay, so that was the quality time that people still had with minor interruptions. Now with smartphones, they don't have any quality time together. Do you know what Shabbat is? The beauty of Shabbat, that they shower beforehand and they dress up nicely, and they all come together for a meal full of love that the wife has invested her heart and soul in. And they sing together, and they reminisce the week's experience. Sometimes 3 or 4 generations together. When my father comes to me and my grandchildren are there, everybody is enjoying everybody. Outside in the non-Torah world, a 43-year-old father with a 16-year-old son don't even understand each other. Oh, they'll blame it on character clashes and generation gaps and any and everything else that the psychologist decides to call it. But at the end of the day, they do not get along. Do they ever have quality time together? A husband, a wife, the generations when they went dating, the seeds they were sowing and the generations they intended on planting. Oh, so are those smartphones a good thing for marriage, or is Shabbat a good thing for marriage? You know something? you have a couple. When they were engaged, they were so excited with each other. So she didn't really know how to cook. She hardly knew how to strike a match. Well, she knew how to go dating, but the match, okay. So she's learning to cook. She's got to build a house soon. So she scrambles him an egg. And half of it is burned like an Ashkenazi matzah, and the other half of it is like runny, and she didn't really know how you salt it or when you salt it, so it's got some very salty patches and some tasteless patches. And the chatan, the groom, just gobbles it up, and he's so excited with it because his kala made him an egg full of love. Can I ask what happened to that egg after they got married, when she became the wife? Woe betide if there's too much or too little salt, or it's too burned or too runny. She better make it exactly how I like it. Oh dear, so what happened? When they were engaged, he was buying her flowers and jewelry, and he really was having... What happened to all of that after they got married? So they went off to the marriage guidance people, and they said, well, you have to leave around love notes, and you have to buy her flowers. What? Is this Hollywood? Are we in an act? No. This is supposed to be real. This is supposed to be real. You have to really find out what love is, not like that fellow who dived into the Niagara Falls. You have to really love and care, respect, and have patience and warmth, and give her anything and everything she needs in life. Now, if you want to keep that marriage, that pre-marriage love, which is really only fantasy because you're not married yet and you don't have a family yet. So it's really only fantasy, and it has to become real after you get married. So the Torah, the Gemara says, over-familiarity breeds contempt. And therefore the Torah says that a woman should be a nidah. A nidah doesn't mean tameh and untouchable and dirty. No, there are halachot. She cannot eat truma. She cannot go into the Beis HaMikdash. She cannot eat a sacrifice. Okay, there are laws of tumah. Doesn't mean she's dirty. It just means no physical contact right now. That if you eat chocolate every day, you won't want to eat it on Shabbat anymore, because you'll just get fed up. When you've got a close friend, if he starts coming to your house too often, you just don't want to see him anymore. That's how relationships break. Over-familiarity breeds contempt. If you find honey, eat to your fill, but don't eat too much, because afterwards you'll never want to look at honey again. So the Torah said you have to have these gaps, separations. You have to have times that you cannot have any physical contact. And you're not supposed to be enticing each other during these times. And it's only a few days. And the Gemara says when a woman comes home from her tevilah, from her mikveh, she will, that fresh love that her husband had for her on the night of the wedding will be revived. So that life is constantly, the female is looking for the love and care, and the male is looking for what he's looking for. And this balance is constantly being revived, that he shows her during the times that there's no physical contact, that he really loves and cares. Also, when he has to manage without his needs, he obviously doesn't need it if the Torah doesn't let him have it. So this is how you keep that fantasy love from before you got married alive and revived constantly during your marriage. It's true that you need that pre-marriage blast off, like the first engine of the rocket that takes the rocket into the atmosphere, that's much stronger than the second engine that just helps it hover around in the atmosphere. Okay, so we did need it, but it has to get to a stage that'll be real. When you're dating, just to have a good time. So a lot of people who date, it just breaks up and they never get to marriage. And sometimes they date for a few years, and sometimes even in sin. And then they get married and they almost immediately want to divorce. What happened? What happened? Well, the Torah has the remedies for this. Keep Tahara, keep Shabbat, and you'll really, really enjoy each other. I would like to speak a few minutes about Rabbi Akiva, because I found, personally, I suppose I could have done it in many of the Tanaim or the Amoraim or other, the Rishonim or Achronim, but I decided to choose Rabbi Akiva. And I would like to talk a few minutes about what love meant by Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva really, really loved Hashem. When he davened in public, he just davened normal, like everybody else. But if he davened in private, you would leave him in one corner and you would find him in a completely different corner of the room because he would keep on bowing down and he wouldn't even realize where he is from his tremendous love for Hashem while he was davening to Hashem. Because of course when Hashem sends us tzarot, he's just asking us, come close to me, come and ask for what you need, do tshuva. So Rabbi Akiva, he was getting close to Hashem and forgetting the whole world. Omar Rabbi Akiva, ze klal gadol b'Torah, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Rabbi Akiva tells his Talmidim, similar to what Hillel HaZaken told the Goy who said to him, teach me the whole Torah while you're standing on one leg. So he said, never do to others what you hate having done to yourself. Rabbi Akiva says the whole Torah is love your friend as you love yourself. Love every Jew as you love yourself. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 disciples, and they all died over 33 days. That's an average of over 800 a day. And these were the heart and soul of Klal Yisrael of that generation. Because lo nahagu kavod ze bezeh. They didn't respect each other enough. Respect and love each other enough. This is who Rabbi Akiva was when talking of love. Chazal say that if you wish to cry on Shabbat, you're not allowed because that makes people miserable. However, if somebody wants to cry, mirov dveikut, from feeling close to Hashem, he may, like Rabbi Akiva. When Rabbi Akiva would read Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, his eyes would flow and flow with tears. Shir HaShirim is a love story. It is really a parable. The parable is the love of a man for a woman. Of course, a husband for a wife. Maimonides, the Rambam says that the whole of Shir HaShirim is a mashal, a parable of love for a woman that somebody is obsessed by and really, really loves. Choilas ahavo, azo kamoves ahavo. And your love for Hashem is the nimshal, is what the mashal is coming to tell us. And your love for Hashem is supposed to be even stronger than that. Rabbi Akiva, the daughter of Kalba Savoie, one of the 3 richest people in the nation. She saw that her father's shepherd has so much potential, but someone who has no Torah cannot make it great. So she asked him, if I marry you, will you go and learn Torah? And he said, yes. And they married in secret, and her father banished them from his massive wealth, his incredible wealth. And they were living in a house of a storehouse of straw, and they were picking straw out of each other's hair in the morning when they were waking up. And Eliyahu Hanavi knocked on the door and said to him, my wife has just given birth, and I don't have a mattress, and can you spare a little bit of straw for her to lay on? Rabbi Akiva turned to his wife and said, see, there's people worse off than us. Okay. And then Rabbi Akiva said to his wife, I want to buy you a Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, a beautiful gold ornament that only very rich people can afford. Why is this not teasing, paining her with words? All of her family had that kind of jewelry. All of her family had lumps of gold. She got a heart full of gold, someone that really meant it. And she sends him off to learn, and it's not simple. She had to explain him, the kids are going to spit at you and pea shooters and whatnot, and that'll be over and done with 2-3 days. Go learn, sit in the... And he learns very fast, and he learns Aleph Beis. He didn't even know Aleph Beis. And he learns Chumash, and he goes eventually, he sits down with his wife, and he says, how long can you manage without me? And people didn't live in fantasy in those days, and they sit down and make a full accounting of and they feel that their deep, tight, strong emotional bond is so strong that she can manage without the physical side for 12 years. And he gets up and he goes to learn by the Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer, the Gedolei Hador. And after 12 years, he comes home and he hears from them behind the door a wicked neighbor telling her, see, your father was right. Your husband left you an aguna to raise the kids by yourself and marry them off, and your father was right. And she calmly tells this person, if he would listen to me, he would go out there for another 12 years. And Rabbi Akiva hears the truth in her words, that she has the koach to manage without me. And what did we say? If she needs him, he has to be there. If she doesn't need him, he has permission. And he goes for another 12 years. He comes back with 24,000 Talmidim. And this bad neighbor is telling her, where are you going to? I remember the Silver Jubilee in London. We lined the streets and the Queen came by in her white Rolls Royce. Okay. Rabbi Akiva arrived with 24,000 disciples. The whole town was turning over and down, upside down. And she's going out and this wicked neighbor is saying, where are you going? You don't have respectable clothing. And her friends are saying, I'll lend you my Shabbos dress. I'll lend you my Yom Tov dress. And she says, I don't need. He knows who I am. He knows what I did for him. And out she goes, and as he comes past, she falls to his feet. And people are trying to say, no, go away from the Rebbe. And Rabbi Akiva stops them. And he says, wait, let her. Sheli v'shelochem sheloi. Anything I learned, I used to get up earlier than everybody else every morning and prepare for the lectures. And I used to go to sleep later than everybody else and revise the lectures. And every single second I felt her neshama was sitting right next to me in the Beis HaMedrash. Rabbi Akiva was doyer tilin shel halachos from the tagim, the spikes on the top of the letters in a Sefer Torah. Rabbi Akiva learned so much from those. Piles and piles of halachot from each tag. Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva, he was the rabbi of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Kabbalah. Rabbi Akiva, the great Rabbi Akiva said, anything and everything I have is all her credit. Leave her. Leave her. When Rabbi Akiva was 120 years old, he was taken out from a lengthy prison sentence where he was Mesirat Nefesh in the prison also. And he was taken out to his death. And they had iron combs. I'm sorry to revolt you and send you home in this, but they're like the decorators flatten out the walls with these iron cones. And they started combing him. And the only thing that was interesting him was, when is the Zman Kriyat Shema? I have to say Shema. The first comb is terribly painful, but the second combing into live flesh, and they're combing him away. And the time of Kriyat Shema, and he bellows out, Shema Yisrael. And his disciples ask him, Rebbe, how can you? Ad kan. And he says to them, my whole life, I would say Shema, v'ohavta es Hashem elekecha b'kol nafshecha. You have to love Hashem with your whole soul, even if someone wants to murder you. There are certain mitzvot that you have to be willing to give your life up just to prove how much you believe and trust Hashem and you love Hashem. And now that every time I said Shema, every morning, every evening, I was imagining, even if a guy would want to kill me for Hashem, I will do it. And now that I get the chance, shouldn't I grab it with two hands? And he continued saying Shema until they murdered him. Cruel, painful murder. And his neshama left him with the word echad. And out came a voice from heaven. Rabbi Akiva is going straight into Gan Eden. From where did he get this strength, this love for Hashem? Rabbi Akiva, who knew the parable, how to love your wife, that she can manage 24 years without physical, not distance, not lack of budget, not time, nothing will separate between them. That Rabbi Akiva who understands man and wife, that is the Rabbi Akiva who understands love between man and wife, that is the Rabbi Akiva who understands love for Hashem. Devotion and loyalty to a partner will help us to give devotion and loyalty to Hashem Yisparach. That was Rabbi Akiva, and that is what we strive for. Sometimes we can't get all the way up there, but we are trying to learn from these things as much as we can. So when dating, you're building generations. When dating, you have to look at this person and say, could I be a loyal and devoted partner? Can they be? Are we interested in the same things in life? Will we make success of this, sowing the seeds of our life? So, will the roots go well? Can we manage? Have we got the same aspirations and ambitions? Do our families fit? And that is what dating is in Judaism. Not running after material benefit and how will I be able to use the other side as much as possible. And when we get to absolute unity, which includes having so much time and patience and energy for each other, because if you are obsessed by your love for your partner, you don't lose yourself when they need your help and they are crying and accusing. You will wait until the tantrum goes over and you will continue loving them thereafter.